All right, so now we're gonna go over the January team update that was uploaded by Amazon. First and foremost, they're talking about releasing the Yorn region and the Phaeton region. This automatically, all it tells you is that they're gonna be releasing with Tier 2 enabled. And when they say that they're gonna enable the Punica region, that means that we have Tier 3 content. So this is huge for everybody. Overall, this is a positive more than it is a negative. You're gonna have access to a larger, more complete version of the game than you would have received if the game launched with Tier 1 content. A lot of people were getting ready to sit at Tier 1, plateau, immediately reach the maximum gear score required to go to Tier 2, and then after that they were gonna focus on collectibles, and maybe some PvP, and just overall kind of limited content, you know? And in my opinion, that was actually gonna drive a lot of the new players away because they were gonna get the wrong impression of the game. They were gonna experience these like older Guardian raids that weren't that challenging. They were gonna experience just Tier 1 stuff. Sure, it has some beautiful qualities to it, like all the abyssal dungeons that are available at Tier 1. But again, it was still so contained that I was like, man, this could potentially be bad for the game if people don't know or get to see or experience all the other stuff that they have in this game. It's not even possible to get a feel or glimpse of what the entire game has in store unless you experience it all the way to Tier 3. So overall, this decision of including Phaeton, Yorn, and Punica, going all the way from Tier 1 to Tier 2 to Tier 3, it's gonna be a beautiful experience. And the first thing I'm gonna tell all the new players, take your time. If you want to truly just take it all in, there's no need for you to rush if you're a new player. Test the classes, learn the mechanics, learn the different systems in the game, ask streamers for information, learn from your friends, group up, try content together. If you want, try content blind, don't look at guides. Get a feel for what the game starts to give you bits and bits of information as you go through the content. It introduces one mechanic in a Guardian raid that you're gonna see again in another raid later down the line. It's almost training you, giving your mind more options and more ways to think about the game and what its potential is and has. Because as you go, things get progressively more challenging. They start adding new, interesting ways of clearing content. There's things like wipe mechanics that doesn't matter how tanky your class is or how well geared you are, you're gonna get from 100 to 0 on one ability if you don't execute the mechanic properly. There's all sorts of amazing systems in the game, from the life skilling, from the ship content, the daily content, chaos dungeons, guardian raids, abyssal dungeons. And then eventually, because they did mention here that we're gonna have sort of a limited version of what Tier 3 currently looks like in other regions, but I think that was also a clever decision by them, because you also don't wanna like introduce Legion raids and Argos right off the bat. If you're not familiar with those, don't worry about it. Just enjoy the ride if you're a new player. Now for veteran players and players who've already gotten their feet wet in the game, you're welcome to min-max. This game offers everybody their approach. It doesn't force you to do anything. It doesn't make you feel guilty if there's no FOMO here. That's a myth. It's a myth that other players create for other players, and it's unnecessary. If you're the type of person that enjoys gaming first, just don't force yourself to think that if you're not keeping up with this person or that person, that you're just gonna be behind and obsolete and blah, blah, blah. The game has methods for you to eventually catch up, and you have to pay 0 for that. Yes, there are mechanics that people misconstrued as pay to win. Yes, people have this ongoing back and forth argument of this is pay to win, that's pay to win, this is my definition of pay to win. Don't worry about it. Don't listen to that. Take the game in for the beautiful masterpiece that it is. It's also a game that's been around for years, so a lot of bugs have been ironed out. It still feels and plays great. It's got all sorts of optimizations and beautiful, drastically different locations and environments and bosses. I can't even begin to describe how much the game has to offer. Just experience it for yourself, get to know the community, make some friends, enjoy the ride. Now, another thing they cover here, they're gonna add Steam achievements. Personally, I love this stuff. I've been a Steam user since back in the days of just Counter-Strike in the orange box with Team Fortress 2. If you're an OG Steam user, you know what I'm talking about. So having Steam achievements is great. They also added the character voice selection here, where you're gonna be able to select the voice of your class, which is something that hasn't been around till fairly recently in one of the last few patches that they had in KR, where they added 4 male voices and 4 female voices. So now you're gonna be able to pick one that might fit you better if you don't like the default voice. Here we have stuff that's based on player feedback. For example, they added the Korean voiceover to the game. This is great. You guys asked for it, you got it. A lot of people weren't happy with the North American voiceover that they saw in the beta. What did they do? Here you go. Korean voice actor, free, take it in. Then we also have some early game cutscenes are now skippable. Believe it or not, once you've played through the main story a few times, as wonderful as it is, you want to be able to skip some stuff. So this is more of a feature for veteran players. And if you're a new player that doesn't really follow lore or care about lore, you just want to level up as quick as possible, this is going to help reduce that overall time that it takes to complete the main storyline. Now we have the balance tweaks for the pacing of the game, and they've worked to make balance changes to the combat. While it won't show you early on, the endgame content will prove that it's more challenging to players, and that is important. I am tired of modern trends of games holding players' hands in every situation. And when players find something too complicated or too challenging, they complain about it, and then the devs, to keep their players happy, nerf everything down, and then it all turns into this boring experience that doesn't make players do what a player has to do. A player is like a puzzle solver, and they have to figure out what is the puzzle here, what is going on here, how do I problem solve this, how do I execute this in time in order for this to happen, what is the boss doing here in this mechanic that is forcing me to not survive this, or what's going on here. The player's meant to ask questions that are introduced by the developers, and then the player's supposed to find those answers to those questions, not be handed them, not be given them. This is not the game for that. If you want an easy game, go play mind-numbingly dumb games that you're just whacking at something the entire time and you're just not using your brain cells for it. Go find those games. Trust me, they're abundant these days. This is not a game for people who want a mind-numbing experience. This is for people who want an enlightening experience, a revolutionary experience, because there hasn't been a game like this in such a long time that actually cares about their players' experience first over the money that they put in their pocket. So keep that in mind. So now we have the community frequently asked questions. So they have character customization questions. They're basically saying that our characters' names are going to be limited to the first letter being a capital letter and no other form of customization after that. You cannot have special characters. Only one letter can be capitalized, which will be the first letter, and no other capital letters after that. For example, McFly, weirdo guy. This to me feels like a decision made by somebody with a dated thought process, or if it's a limitation of however Amazon is implementing the game on their end, because this issue is not in the Korean version or in the Russian version of the game, which I've played and seen both. This one still confuses me. I really hope they consider enabling this in the future, implementing it somehow, and then potentially giving players a free name change ticket to truly get the names they want, because not everyone has a monosyllabic name that just needs one capital letter and nothing else. You're just gonna have these bland looking names all around. It's not gonna look great. A lot of players are not gonna like this, but it doesn't break the game for me. I'm gonna take it on the chin and move on. The next thing is, how does a character name reservation and deletion work? Long story short on this, you cannot expect to create a character that you plan to delete that has a name that you want to keep. Let me repeat that. Do not create a character with a name you want to keep on a character that you plan to delete. For example, if you want to call your character Weirdo Guy with one capital W at the beginning, you cannot save Weirdo Guy for a mage if you made a warrior and you plan to delete that warrior. The reason being is because of the way they refresh their servers. They have to do it manually. This is not an automatic refreshing system that every patch by itself, it'll refresh the name database. It doesn't do that. They have to do it themselves manually. Now, some of the community managers have posted in the forums that they'll try to link this with patches and things like that, but as far as we know right now, it is not a safe practice to try to save a character name on a class you're not planning to play. Here's actually a good example. The Destroyer is not out right now, and you made a warrior and you called him Weirdo Guy, and that's the name that you want for your Destroyer. Name him Weirdo Guy and accept, and then you're gonna spawn at Trixion, but then from that moment on, just go to your character select. Don't make him select one of the classes that is available, because those classes are not the class you're waiting for. You're waiting on that Destroyer, right? Leave him sitting there. He'll take up a character slot, but you're waiting on that Destroyer, right? So leave Weirdo Guy sitting there until Destroyer gets released. Then when Destroyer gets released, you go back into Trixion, pick your Destroyer class, and now you have a Destroyer named Weirdo Guy. That's the way to do it. So now Founders Pack and skin questions. Is it possible to stack a Founders Pack for multiple rewards? Players can buy one of each Founder Pack. Basically, this means that you can buy a Platinum and a Gold, but you will not be able to stack 2 Platinums. You can only stack Founders Packs that are different. That's basically what this means. Miscellaneous gameplay questions. What happens if your guild leader doesn't log in for weeks? This is one of those things where they're just gonna pass it over after 10 days. So usually when you have a guild leader, you have like co-leaders or officers. It'll just go to one of the officers. Looking ahead, while we know there's a ton of excitement surrounding launch day, the information will be delivered throughout the next week, and I will cover this information in the next part of the video. So thank you for watching. Catch you on the next one. Stay curious, my friends, because knowledge is power.